How does a kingdom, a 1,000-year-old power, vanish in less than 2 hours? This isn't a riddle. It's the shocking story of the Battle of Mohács, a clash of empires that redrew the map of Europe forever. In 1526, the Kingdom of Hungary stood as a proud bastion of Christendom, a buffer against the seemingly unstoppable expansion of the Ottoman Empire. But on a single, fateful summer day, all of that was about to be washed away in a tide of blood and mud. This is the story of a boy king, a magnificent sultan, and a battle that should never have been fought. At the heart of our story are two rulers, polar opposites in almost every way. In one corner we have King Louis II of Hungary. He ascended to the throne as a child, and by 1526 he was just 20 years old. Young, idealistic, but ultimately inexperienced, he was surrounded by a court of bickering, arrogant nobles, each more concerned with their own power and prestige than the looming threat from the east. The kingdom was financially broke, its border fortresses were crumbling, and its once mighty army was a shadow of its former self. Louis was a king in name, but a puppet in practice, pulled in every direction by factions he couldn't control. In the other corner, we have the man they called the Magnificent, Sultan Suleiman I. At 31, he was already a seasoned ruler and a brilliant military strategist. He commanded the largest, most modern, and most disciplined army in the world. The Ottoman Empire was at the zenith of its power, wealthy, organized, and driven by a relentless ambition to expand its dominion. While Louis struggled to gather a few thousand men, Suleiman marched at the head of a massive force, numbering at least 50,000. Complete with the world's most terrifying artillery and his elite Janissary infantry, the contrast couldn't be starker: a fragile, divided kingdom versus a unified, expansionist empire. In the spring of 1526, Suleiman began his march north. His target was the heart of Hungary. News of the invasion sent waves of panic through the Hungarian court. But instead of uniting, the nobles squabbled. Who would lead the army? Where would they make their stand? The most powerful noble in the kingdom, John Zapolya, the voivode of Transylvania, was conspicuously slow to mobilize his own large army, leading to centuries of debate about his true intentions. Was he delayed, or was he deliberately waiting for the royal army to be defeated so he could seize the throne? We may never know for sure. Ignoring the advice of more cautious commanders to wait for reinforcements and fight a defensive war, the overconfident and fiery Archbishop Paul Tomori convinced the young king to meet the Ottomans in open battle. His reasoning was steeped in arrogance and a fatal underestimation of the enemy. He believed the chivalrous charge of the Hungarian heavy cavalry, renowned throughout Europe, could shatter any foe. They chose a battlefield, a large, open but slightly sloping plain near the town of Mohacs, on the banks of the Danube River. It seemed perfect for a cavalry charge, but it was also perfect for a trap. On August 29, 1526, the two armies faced each other. The Hungarian force was a colorful spectacle of feudal chivalry with around 25,000 men, including heavily armored knights who looked like they'd ridden straight out of a storybook. But they were outnumbered at least 2-1. Across the field, the Ottoman army was a vision of disciplined order. Suleiman, a master of deception, had a plan. He placed his less experienced Rumelian troops at the front, with his elite Janissaries and the devastating Ottoman artillery hidden behind them, just over a slight rise in the terrain. His plan was simple, but deadly. Lure the Hungarians in, let them think they're winning, and then annihilate them. The battle began around midday. With reckless bravery, the Hungarian right wing, led by Paul Tomori himself, charged. The knights, clad in shining steel, crashed into the Ottoman front lines. The initial impact was tremendous. The Rumelian soldiers, as planned, buckled and began to retreat. A roar of victory went up from the Hungarian lines. They thought they had broken the enemy. It seemed like their bravado was paying off. Seeing this apparent success, the Hungarian center, with the young King Louis among them, also advanced, pressing what they believed was a decisive advantage. But they weren't charging towards victory. They were charging into a kill zone. As the triumphant Hungarian knights crested the small ridge, their elation turned to horror. Before them, stretching as far as the eye could see, were the elite Janissaries, muskets leveled and hundreds of cannons, all aimed directly at them. The trap was sprung. A deafening roar erupted as the Ottoman artillery fired as one. The volley was catastrophic. It tore through the densely packed ranks of the Hungarian cavalry, turning men and horses into a mangled heap. The charge, which moments before had been a glorious spectacle, dissolved into chaos and slaughter. The Janissaries then advanced, their disciplined musket fire cutting down anyone who survived the cannonade. The legendary Hungarian heavy cavalry, bogged down and disorganized, were no match for the combined arms of the Ottoman machine. On the other flank, the Ottoman cavalry swept around and enveloped the Hungarian army, cutting off any hope of retreat. The battle turned into a one-sided massacre. What was supposed to be a decisive victory became a desperate fight for survival. The entire Hungarian line collapsed. Order vanished, replaced by sheer panic. In the midst of this chaos was King Louis II. Seeing the battle was hopelessly lost, his bodyguards tried to escort him away from the field. But fate and the terrain had one last cruel twist in store. As they fled, the heavens opened up in a torrential downpour, turning the battlefield and the surrounding streams into a quagmire of thick mud. While trying to cross a small creek called the Sila, the king's heavily armored horse stumbled and fell. The weight of his own armor trapped the young king, pinning him face down in the muddy water. The 20-year-old ruler of Hungary drowned alone in a muddy ditch, while his kingdom was being erased from existence just a few miles away. His death was not glorious or heroic. It was pathetic, tragic, and a symbol of the entire disaster. The aftermath was cataclysmic. In less than 2 hours, the entire royal army of Hungary was annihilated. An estimated 14,000 Hungarian soldiers were killed, including the king, 7 bishops, and hundreds of nobles. The entire leadership of the country gone. The road to the Hungarian capital, Buda, was now wide open. Suleiman marched in and sacked the city, though he soon withdrew, not yet ready to annex the territory fully. The power vacuum left by Louis's death triggered a devastating civil war between rival claimants to the throne, which further weakened the shattered kingdom. The Battle of Mohács marked the end of an independent Hungary for centuries. The kingdom was partitioned, with the central part, including the capital, becoming a province of the Ottoman Empire for the next 150 years. The western and northern parts fell under the control of the Austrian Habsburgs, setting the stage for centuries of conflict between the two empires. The battle that day near Mohács didn't just end a kingdom, it fundamentally changed the balance of power in Central Europe. It was a brutal lesson in the transition from medieval warfare to the new age of gunpowder and cannons. The glorious but obsolete charge of armored knights was no match for disciplined infantry and artillery. It was a tragedy born of arrogance, division, and a fatal underestimation of a brilliant opponent. And it all came down to 2 hours on a muddy field where a 1,000-year-old kingdom simply ceased to be. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this dive into history fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of the pivotal moments that shaped our world.